Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and I always thought that in some ways I was 1/48th Japanese, but I never really went through testing it. I mean, how would I go test if I was partially Japanese? Well, I would use one of those fancy genetic testing kits. You know, the ones where you spit into a cup and you send it to a lab and they give you a nice spreadsheet about all your makeup. Now, I've never done this for real reasons because A, it's a real privacy nightmare. Like the fact that, I'm already the kind of guy that makes videos talking about how you should probably turn off your cookies and enable ad blocks on site. I would never in a million years send my actual sensitive genetic information to a random company to store. And I don't think most of you people watching would, okay? Most of the viewers here on the channel. But let's say you're somebody on the wild world of the internet and you've stumbled in here and you're like, whoa, what's this schizophrenic Indian guy talking about today? Well, it's me telling you guys to delete a lot of that information on a site known as 23andMe. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what 23andMe is, this is the website. They have actually filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, and amongst all of that, they are still on their shop selling what appears to be 23andMe services. Now, I also have a shop, but I don't deal with actual genetic information. I deal with merch, and it is currently the last chance to get the Some Ordinary Gamers merch. After March 31st, ladies and gentlemen, that merch drop we have will be gone. And there's some cool pickings there. There's an amazing hoodie that I really like, glows in the dark, has your Linux terminal commands, and for me, drinking coffee is kind of like a spice of life. I can't do it right now because of Ramadan, okay? The sun's got to go down. But getting yourself a coffee mug, getting yourself a nice hoodie, maybe both, maybe one or the other, is something I highly recommend before 31st comes by. It's a great way to support the channel, great way to support stuff like deep web browsing that suddenly does get hit with like age restrictions. So if you want to help the channel out, you want to support it, especially with content that may be a little bit too risque for the internet or YouTube's, then definitely go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. You got till March 31st, so I figured I might as well shill that in there. But my shameless plug aside, let's talk about this plug, 23andMe. Which gene could save your life? Start your DNA-powered health journey today. You know, it's one of those products where everyone buys because it's like that real quick health craze nonsense. You know, you suddenly see somebody wearing an Apple Watch all of a sudden, and it's like, gotta make sure I close those rings, gotta make sure gotta monitor my sleep. You know, it's like people who buy like subscription services, this kind of stuff, but really don't think deeper than that. Here is a bunch of services you can get. $149, basically you start off with for the basic package. The enhanced package goes to $269. This is Canadian, by the way. And then the premium package for the first year is $269, and it's a $99 a year subscription. It's a subscription to a genetic service. So you might be like, okay, what's the most basic option given me, right? So you basically get this DNA kit. You basically give them a little bit of your DNA, whether that be saliva, cum, whatever the fuck they want. It goes back to their lab, gets processed, and they send you this beautiful makeup. So it'll tell you what your ancestry detail is. And one of the reasons I never did it was because I knew it would come back 100% Indian, 102% Indian with a 2% margin of error. And then they give you ancestry composition. So this lady figures out that she is 58.6% East Asian, with a percentage makeup of Indonesian, Vietnamese, so on and so forth, okay? So if this kind of interests you, it might be there, okay? It might be for you. And then, of course, they give you the beautiful, like, aversions, allergies, and possible DNA issues that you may have. For instance, how much Neanderthal DNA do you got? I don't know if it even fucking matters, bro. I've been a Homo sapien for a long time. I love this ancestry timeline. Many generations ago, you were Italian, then you were Nigerian, then you were Scandinavian, and now you're Ashkenazi Jewish. Huh. What a jump. I don't think that's really a family fucking tree more than it is a family swing set at that point. God damn, you're just floating through, are you? And then, of course, do you want to find people that share your DNA, possible relatives and family members? This is where it's at. But like, all jokes aside, you go to like the premium option, and it's mostly for people that are into like, obviously like looking at their health, right? Now, one thing that I do have to say is I believe this is not actual real genetic testing, okay? This is not like real genetic diagnostics testing that you would need at like a certified place. I believe this is still not necessarily following that trend. So if you do this and you get like, all of your pharmacogenetics, your insights on your heart health and various like illnesses that you may be susceptible for, you still should go to a fucking doctor. So, okay, all things aside, 23andMe got a lot of interest for me just because that there was a actual hack that had happened, right? Now, about a year ago, I talked about how 23andMe was part of a hack where a whole bunch of information ended up getting leaked. Now, on the dark web, I looked through a lot of the actual information that was leaked, and I blurred a lot of that stuff out. But it contained a lot of popular names like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, and Wojcicki. So a lot of really popular, really massive, huge figures in that like tech industry, in just elite individuals in the United States. And it came out to like, hey, this is like their birth year, this is their standard sex, this is obviously going into their actual genetic history as well too. And that list you saw was from an actual dump from that hack where they were looking at Ashkenazi Jews in specific. So Elon, Sergey, and a lot of these people were alleged to be in this Ashkenazi database, right? So that was the information that got leaked and shared to the internet. Now, again, one thing is, as a cybersecurity person, every time you get like a leak, you have to kind of verify and see, could it be real? And unfortunately, that information was breached. Based on this information that I got from the Office of the Attorney General in the state of California, the notice of data breach from 23andMe. So what 23andMe said at the time was, our investigation determined that the threat actor accessed certain information about your ancestry that you chose to share in our family tree profile, specifically your display name, relationship labels, and percentage DNA you share with the Credential stuffed holder account through which your information was accessed. So yeah, information was taken, right? And obviously for a site that deals in very sensitive information, anytime a hack occurs, it's absolutely devastating. So how did this actually happen? Based on 23andMe's own investigation, they believed that this was a credential stuffing attack. So what a credential stuffing attack is, just to give you an idea, is let's imagine like Steam, for instance, got hacked, right? Now Steam contains a lot of our usernames and passwords to log into. Now, assuming that password is not salted properly, and let's just say that they have access to everyone's login and password on Steam. Now, if there are, let's say, I don't know, just a rough ballpark, like I think it's 30 million users on Steam, maybe more. So if you have 30 million credentials, it's kind of easy for somebody to take one random credential out of it and maybe try it on, say, an email service, say Apple, say, Hotmail, say Yahoo, say YouTube, say Google, a lot of different services. And if that username and password combo on Steam was not different from like any other, site, which actually is more common than you think, then that person could basically be hacked not just on Steam, but numerous other websites. Which is why I've always said, use things like password managers. There's free stuff literally available built into the operating system of most cellular devices. Most computers have things like Bitwarden that you can access. So use password managers, change your passwords, use something complicated, but just do not reuse and forget, because that's usually how you get caught up in a credential stuffing attack. Now, obviously, for the people at 23andMe, this is a pretty fucking damaging thing. A lot of this information was siphoned and sold on the dark web. And unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the troubles at 23andMe. 23andMe was a company that, for anybody that has no idea, this was actually led by Anne Wojcicki. Anne was running 23andMe, and she started this back in like 2006 with genetic experts and engineers. And for a while, everything seemed to have worked out just fine. Until, of course, around last year, November of last year, the 23andMe board would literally just get up all of a sudden and resign completely en masse, rebuking Anne entirely based on this report from Yahoo Finance. So literally that actual press release came out. Independent directors resigned from the board. This is the letter that those board members wrote to Anne. Dear Anne, we the independent directors at 23andMe board hereby tender our resignations effective immediately. So after months of work, we have yet to receive from you a fully financed, fully diligenced, actionable proposal that is in the best interests of the non-affiliated shareholders. We believe the special committee and the board have provided ample time for you to submit such a proposal. That we have not seen any notable progress over the last 5 months leads us to believe that there's no proposal forthcoming. While we continue to wholeheartedly support the company's mission and believe deeply in the values of personalized health and wellness offering that you have articulated, it's also clear that we differ on the strategic direction of the company going forward. Because of that difference, and because of your concentrated voting power, we believe it's in the best interest that we resign from the board rather than have a protracted and distracting difference of view with you as to the direction of this company. So it's kind of insane when you've got Roloff Botha, Patrick Chung, Sandra Hernandez, Neil Mohan, the current CEO of YouTube. No fucking way, dude. When they all write against Anne and her belief for this company. And the thing about 23andMe is that there really wasn't a good plan. To give you an idea, the basic business model for this entire operation was spit in a cup one time, send it over to a lab so they would just have this information and give you a beautiful little PDF file that says you can say this percentage of a certain word, okay? That's pretty much all this ended up being. And normally, if you're running a business, you gotta have something that keeps bringing certain people back, right? You have to have something tangible. And they really didn't. Aside from having that subscription service we looked at it very much in the beginning of this video, really how useful is that for the average person? If you're somebody that really cares about your health to this extent, you probably wouldn't have gone to 23andMe in general. You probably would have gotten to actual physicians, people that can give you realistic diagnosis and give you better plans than what 23andMe was able to do. They were trying to be this health subscription service when they never really started out that way. And to charge somebody $100 a year for that is kind of a tall order. Since 2006, according to Queen's University Law, 23andMe sold more than 12 million testing kits, right? And they had really high profile people like Snoop Dogg, Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett. So some of the biggest names in the world, they've got their genetic history just sitting in their offices, right? Now, the thing is, with all of this information sitting around over there with actual user genetic information, there really wasn't enough oversight on a company like this to have that information be protected with strict legal regulation. Now, usually in the world of medicine, right, there's a lot of laws. In Canada, you've got things I believe, PIPEDA, which is a kind of a general law, but it includes genetic information. In the US, you have different laws. I believe in the medical system, it's HIPAA, but I'm not an expert at how HIPAA works at all, so don't quote me on this. But generally speaking, when it comes to medical-related stuff, there is a decent level of privacy regulation. Something consumer DNA companies really didn't seem to be completely under. So the biggest thing that I'm leading all of this up to is the fact that now that they are bankrupt, and why they are bankrupt, what the fuck happens with your information still sitting in their servers? So when I went to their privacy policy, right, at 23andMe, when I wanted to see what has happened with data sharing, right? So information you provide to their service, their commonly hold entities, affiliates, and change of ownership says if we're ever involved in a bankruptcy, merger, acquisition, reorganization, or sale of assets, and sale of assets is huge. I would consider people's genetic information to be the only asset worth even buying from 23andMe. So with 23andMe's Chapter 11 filing, right, talking about bankruptcy proceedings and whatnot, one thing that they absolutely have stated, obviously in this entire post here, is they will actually be operating, okay? That means that literally in this entire thing, what they will do is they will restructure the company, their finances, operations, and include a sale of certain or all of its assets. So assets can really mean a broad thing. It could literally mean the buildings you're in, property, whatever you're holding for maybe investment value. But assets, in my opinion, just putting it out, and again, I'm not a lawyer, could possibly include maybe the actual genetic information, which would be probably the most valuable asset for any company wanting to look into this or buy into 23andMe. So for instance, up here, what does it say? What does this mean for my genetic data? What this says is the filing does not change how we store, manage, or protect customer data. Okay, so they're still following their same protocols. Through the sale process, 23andMe will look to secure a partner who shares in its commitment to customer data privacy and will further its mission of helping people access, understand, and benefit from the human genome. So any buyer will be required to comply with applicable law with respect to treatment of customer data. So basically, if they sell this data, right, they're going to basically request that any company follows the same laws that they've already been following. This is not shocking information. Our users' privacy and data are important considerations in any transaction, and we remain committed to users' privacy, to being transparent with our customers about how their data is managed. You can opt into or out of our research at any time by updating your consent status in the account settings. If you opt out, we'll stop using your info for research going forward, and will discontinue your use of data within 30 days, which I highly recommend you go and do, because I don't know or trust who 23andMe will bring on board to buy. It could be anybody that has an interest in their information, which again, the biggest asset they have is genetic information. Genetic information that would be important to companies like insurance groups, companies in the medical field, maybe law enforcement agencies. I don't know how this is gonna work, but I would say if instead of trusting a corporate engine like this, you might as well just rip your information away if you have it, just for your safety right now. Because once they've already sold this, it's kind of out of your hands depending on who they've merged with. I would say for insurance companies, for health-related companies, this might be interesting to look at. There's a lot of people who have genetic markers that are more susceptible to things like breast cancer or diabetes. And just imagine the scumminess of an insurance company, who are already scummy as fuck anyways, just buying information like this, and anytime you say apply to them, they can look at your information, cross-reference it with whatever they bought from 23andMe and say, huh, maybe I'll just jack up their insurance premiums a little bit because there's a good chance this guy might have a little bit of that cancer. It's disgusting, but unfortunately, it's quite a reality when it comes to getting yourself insured health-wise. So what is the actual recourse that you have? Well, since they are in bankruptcy, since they are going through it all, it's actually great and advisable that if you have an account with 23andMe, delete your account, delete your information, go on right now and start issuing things to be deleted. Because when it's too late and this stuff has already been sold, you won't have the option. So yeah, we live in a weird world where security, privacy-focused people like me have to actually end up making a video telling people like, deleting your genetic information is a fucking requirement. And it shouldn't have to be this way. You know, it shouldn't have to be somebody on the internet telling you this. Honestly, when it comes to companies like this, they should have been regulated from the get-go, and this shouldn't have been an issue in the first place either. The government should have stepped in and probably said, yeah, that information isn't for sale. But 23andMe is going for bankruptcy, and since this is the only thing, in my opinion, of fucking value, it is what it is. Honestly, you probably should have deleted your account like fucking the moment they had their first data breach, because if they were willing to have your information leaked out like that, you should never have trusted them with something as sensitive as your, genetic information. Now, on my personal belief, you should have probably deleted your account when they already got hacked all the way back then. But then again, hindsight is always 20/20, as they say. So, ladies and gentlemen, 23andMe pretty much out the door. Absolutely stunning chef's kiss of an implosion. And if I were you and I ever use this service, or any service, by the way, it doesn't even have to be this, it could be any ancestry service, delete your fucking information. This is me, Mutahar, and I'm out.